Hey everybody, it's Sean, and in today's video, we're going to be walking you through how to create a short document in Adobe InDesign. This is sort of like a newsletter brochure for a fictional company that we're going to be working with called Harriet Meets, and we're going to be covering things like layers, how to add new pages, some master page things, adding things into your Creative Cloud libraries, working with paragraph styles and character styles, and applying all sorts of different stylistic approaches to layout and typography. So with that being said, let's just jump right on in. And I have Adobe InDesign open, and to create a new document, I'm just going to hit File, New Document. And the dialog window should pop up. Here it is. And so the next thing we have to do is set the parameters of our document. I know that I'd like to use a letter-sized document to start out with. I'm going to switch my units over to inches. The orientation should be portrait, that's fine. We will need facing pages. We don't necessarily need a primary text frame, so I'm going to leave that turned off for now. And I'm good with just one column. Let me just hit preview here for you. There we go. So we should be fine with just one column. But you know what, actually, let's just make it 3 for layout purposes. Margins, these look fine. Bleed, we're going to increase to 1/8 of an inch, just like so. And slug, we can leave alone. So this is a fairly typical document setup, nothing super fancy here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to retitle this to be Harriet Meets Short Doc. Sorry, not Fox. Short doc. There we go. And we can hit create. Lovely. So all of the assets for this project can be found in the project folder that I gave you guys. It's in the Harriet Meets Short Doc folder. And in here you'll find this Z Final folder. That's my version, the example version. If you guys get lost, feel free to reference that for your own use. But try to avoid it, and let's try and work through it together. The other thing that you'll notice is I have a links folder here with some imagery and logos in it. And then finally, we have a Word document that has all of the body copy and some color stat information. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So what I'd like to start out by doing is I would just like to start out and recreate this cover page. It's pretty simple because it's based off of 2 different images. The first image is going to be the Harriet Meets cover. So I'm just going to click and drag that into InDesign and show you a few different ways that you can go about placing imagery. The first way is if you click and drag and just simply place your mouse where you would like the top of the image to be and click once. That will automatically put the image at its full resolution, its full size, onto the page, and then it is your responsibility to sort of go in and make some further layout adjustments. And you can totally go about doing it that way. I, however, find it's actually more useful if you click and drag it into InDesign, and then if you actually were to click and drag out the bounding box that you need this to sit at, because then it will automatically format to the correct size for your layout. The other way that you can go about doing this actually is if we were to delete this, you can go up to File, Place, and then select the image from you'll have to navigate back to our project folder if you're not there. Go under links and then find the file that you would like to place, and then it's just a matter of the exact same method of placing an image, or you could also use Command D to do that file place option as well. So now that we have something built into our document, it's on layer 1. What I would like to do is take a moment and rename layer 1. I'm going to rename it to imagery. There we go. And to do that, I just double clicked on the layer and typed in the new layer name. Now the next thing that we have to do is add in our logo. And to add in our logo, it's just an exercise in the same practices. So I'm going to use Harriet Meets logo vertical white, and I'm just going to click and drag this. Whoops. Actually, we're going to have to be careful about that. So if you just click and drag your file on top of another image, it will just replace the image with your new selected image. So just be careful about that one. I'm going to click and drag this to be about, a fairly decent size on the page. There we can see our logo. And I just kind of want to make sure that it is visually centered on the page. Something like that looks all right to me. And we can hit our W key just to transfer into our preview mode. I just find there's less distractions when you're trying to center things this way. If you wanted to be specific about it, you could use your align tools at the top of the top menu here. You'll notice that we're fairly centered actually in the page already, so there's not much to really worry about there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the cover. Now, if you want to get a little bit fancy, we could go under Window, Effects, and you can start applying some subtle things here. We could Effects. We could add a drop shadow to it if we'd like. I'm just going to hit preview so we can see what this looks like. And drop shadows are one of those things where if you don't know how to use them properly, they can look really, really ugly really, really fast. So just always make sure that your drop shadows are subtle, they're not too heavy, and that you give them a very wide berth if you're using them to help them stand out from a background. So something like that should be okay. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks fine. So moving on now, we have to actually create the proper pages for our document. And to do so, I am going to hit create new page, and I'm going to do it a couple of times. Lovely. And that was just up here in the pages panel. So if we look at our example document, I'm just going to switch back over here. What you'll notice is there is generally a image on the left-hand spread that's full bleed edge to edge. We have type that's on the right-hand page. We have a footer with a page number, and that's pretty consistent for both spreads. So I'm going to actually take this second and I'm going to add in some color swatches. And when you start a new document, your color swatches will default to have CMYK values as well as RGB values. So I'm just actually going to trash those because they're generally really not the nicest colors and I don't like working with them. And in your Word doc, so if you open up your project folder and you were to open up this body copy document here, you'll notice that I have a bunch of color values listed. These are in RGB. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just drag my Word document onto my other monitor so that I can use InDesign and Microsoft Word at the same time. And I'm just going to go up to our swatches panel. I'm going to click on new color swatch to create a new color swatch. And I'm going to change this from CMYK to RGB. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working my way down those color specs and inputting in the new color swatches. This is kind of slow, so don't mind me. But all you have to do is take the color values here. So the first one is red, the middle one is green, the last one is blue, and just input them into the appropriate color values. The next thing that you'll want to do as you create your color swatches is uncheck name with color value. If you name a swatch using a color value, it gets very confusing very quickly. And what you realistically want to make sure is that your document is well organized for the next person who has to come in and use this document. So what we can do is we can call this HM for Harriet Meets, and we can call it red. So let's hit OK. And now we have our HM red color swatch. Now I'm going to do one other thing here with you guys, and I'm going to create a new color swatch. I'm going to make the HM blue color swatch 176, 185, 199. There we go. There's our blue one. We're going to name it HM blue. Lovely. And before you go up here and hit OK or hit add, what we can do is actually add to CC library, create new library, and we can hit add. And so what might happen for you is it might load up I'm going to hit done. It will probably load up a CC libraries panel. And this is an incredibly useful panel because it saves all sorts of information into here that you can use throughout all of the Adobe software. As we go throughout this tutorial, I'll be saving stuff into here and showcasing how useful it is for when you have to start a new project with the same brand but different assets. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to drag this out from our side dock. I'm going to open up the swatches menu. I'm going to click this red swatch and I'm going to drag it, I'm going to drag it into our CC libraries. Oh, that's odd. Does not want to play nicely. Here we go. Sorry, there's a little button down here in the top in the bottom left that you can click, and it will add to your current CC library. I'm used to being able to click and drag it in, but I think there was an update and that feature might have been removed. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward and input the rest of my color swatches into this document, and I'm going to continue to add them into my CC library. So I'll meet you guys back here when that's all finished. Alright, so I've added in all of my color swatches. They're all sitting here in my library, and it looks like we're good to go. So now that we've gotten that all settled, what we can do is we can go up to pages and we can start laying out some basic information on our master pages. Now, just a little bit of a refresher on master pages. These are pages that will allow you to put information on them that can be applied to every single page in your document. Right now, we only have one style of master pages. You can actually add other styles, other master page styles as well into more complex documents. And instead of just seeing a master, you'll see B, C, D, however many extra master pages you'd like to have. Ideally, though, you want to have as few master pages as possible just to avoid confusion. Now, to show you what sort of things you can do with master pages, I'm going to draw out a rectangle. I'm going to use our HM tan color, and I'm just going to click and drag from the bleed about over to the margin, and I want to take up the little footer portion of the page, coming slightly up the margins, somewhere like there. And now I can hit Command C to copy, come over to our left-hand page, Command V, and I can just click and drag this down to match the same height and the same placement. Now, if we go over to our spread, you'll notice it doesn't look any different because there's no content placed on our second and third pages. So I'm just scrolling up to showcase that we're back in our regular section. You'll notice that all of a sudden these two tan bars are at the bottom and you can't actually select them. That's because whenever you apply something to a master page, they sort of act as though they're on their own hidden layer in your regular spreads, and they are locked. You cannot touch the elements that sit on them. Now, to add page numbers, this is a very easy trick. All you have to do is create a new text box, just like so. I'm going to make it about 1 column's width. And I'm just going to wait for my computer to catch up with me here. All right, there we go. So there's our new text box, and we can type in, if you want, PG. We can hit space, and we can go up to type, insert special character, markers, and current page number. When you add a current page number, it adds in this sort of character here. It's a letter A, but it's actually a special marker, and that will dictate the page number that the actual page information will read from. So I just want to align that to the right since we're on the right hand page, and I'm going to drag this down to about the bottom of our or the top of our margin, I suppose. Sorry everybody, my computer is being a little bit slow today. Alright, and it's back. So I'm just gonna shift this guy back up to where it belongs, about there. Lovely. And now if we jump back over to page 3, you'll notice that there is a new folio tab that reads page 3. To sort of show you what happens in a master page if you don't apply a page marker and you just were to write the page, I copy and pasted that text box, so Command C, Command V, and I'm going to get rid of this page marker. I'm going to type in page 2, and I'm just going to bring this guy down to match the other one. There, looks great. And I'm going to select all. I'm going to come up here and align it to the left-hand margin. And now we can go and check out page 2. And while page 2 looks great, if we jump down and look at page 4, all of a sudden you notice it still says page 2, but page 5 actually says page 5. And that's because on the left hand or on the right hand page we used a proper marker, and on the left hand page we just typed in the page number. So what we want to do is go back up to our master page by double clicking on it. I want to copy this page marker. I want to come back over to this text box. I want to paste the page number, and now we're good to go. So we have a proper page 2, we have a proper page 4, and life is great. So the last two things I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to add in the next 2 images on the left-hand page. And to do that, again, it's very easy. We can just hit Command D, and we can place in our imagery. So the first image I'm going to place in is the knife. I'm going to hit open, and there's something that I would like to point out before we actually place this file. It's quite a large file, so it might take a second. You can see here how rectangular it is and how much of a landscape sort of orientation it is. If we just click, it will place the photo at its full resolution. And while that's not really a big deal because you can just do some simple formatting like dragging it over, zooming out again, and grabbing this blue bar here and dragging the bounding box back over to the page. Let's drag it up. Now you have the option to either double click, make sure that you are using this orange bounding box, and click and drag your image to be as centered as you can get it. Maybe zooming out and scaling this up slightly. I'm going to zoom back in. You also might have this round circle. This is called the content placer, and you can use this to automatically control the placement of the image within the bounding box itself. So I've gotten that relatively where I think I want it to be. The image does look pixelated, but I promise you it's just our display performance acting on typical quality that is preventing it from showcasing itself at its full resolution. So the other way that we could have gone in and placed this image is if we hit Command D, gone into the knife, hit open, and I'm just going to wait for it to place the image properly. There we go. And I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to click and drag until I have a box that is manageable this time. So yes, this picture does look much smaller than when we placed it in originally. What I can do is I can click and drag out this bounding box to be the height of the page. I can click and drag the blue one to be the width of the page. And now I can double click on this image and I can start scaling it. The other option that you have too is you can right click, hit fitting, and then we can fill frame proportionally. And what that does is it actually fills up our frame. We can use our content placer to find our knife, just like so. And we can scale it up appropriately, something like that, and just bring it back into the center. Cool. Now, personally, I found that to be a lot easier than finicking around with all of these bounding boxes and trying to make sure that everything was placed in there correctly. And finally, we're going to add in this last image, which is the barbecue chef image. So I'm going to hit Command D or File Place, and we're going to grab this barbecue chef. We're going to hit Open. We're going to wait a second. And now we can click and drag. And this guy's going to be a much easier one to fill. So I'm not too concerned about it. All we have to do is drag over our blue bounding box here and take the content placer tool and just slide him so that he's nice and centered. And voila. Now, one thing you might notice is that the footers are showing up underneath these images, and that's not the best thing. So to get rid of master page elements from a page that you don't want it applied to, all we have to do is come up here in our master page section, click on the none page, click and drag it down to the page that you do not want it to be applying to, and release. Now you'll notice that we got rid of the footer elements on page 2 and page 4. Just scroll down. There we go. And finally, the last place we actually have to get rid of them on is our cover page. Boom. There we go. So that's going to be everything I'm going to show you in this video. Catch me in the next one where we go over paragraph styles and character styles. See you then.